All right, so I have this question here from Brian. And Brian is saying, I just came across the scripture that says a man's life is not measured by the things he possesses. In Luke 12:15, that's from the Bible. It says, what then is the life of a man measured by? Now that's a good question that Brian is asking. And Brian's question is what we categorize as an existential question. Existential in the fact that it makes us question our existence. Why are we here? What is life about? And Brian is taking his question from the book of Luke in the Bible, verse 15. And I'm going to read that verse. It says, Then he said, that is Jesus, beware, be on guard against every kind of greed. Life is not measured by how much you own. And this Jesus talking to a crowd. But then to understand this verse that Brian is bringing our attention to, we must read the verses before it and the verses after it to get proper context. So I'm just going to take some time, if you give me the opportunity to read, to start from Luke 12, verse 13. And Jesus tells the parable of the rich fool. It says, Then someone came from the crowd and told Jesus, Teacher, please tell my brother to divide our father's estate with me. And Jesus replied, Friend, who made me a judge over you to decide such things as that? Now, at this period in time, Jesus had grown in fame and influence. And obviously there was this person in the crowd while Jesus was talking to them and thought Jesus could handle his family dispute. So he told Jesus to talk on his behalf to his brother. And Jesus just pretty much said, this is not the kind of work I came here to do, to settle family disputes. And he now said, beware, be on guard against every kind of greed. Life is not measured by how much you own. Then Jesus told a story. He said, a rich man had a fertile farm that produced fine crops. He told himself, what should I do? I don't have room for all my crops. Then he said, I know, I'll tear down my barns and build bigger ones. Then I'll have room enough to store all my wheat and other goods. And I'll sit back and say to myself, my friend, you have enough stored away for years to come. Now take it easy, eat, drink, and be merry. Now the next verse is very important for us to note because there lies our answer to Brian's question. It says, but God told him, you fool, you will die this very night. Then you will get everything. Then who will get everything you worked for? Now that statement, we ought to keep that statement in our minds. Then who will get everything you worked for? And verse 21 says, yes, a person is a fool to store up earthly wealth, but not have a rich relationship with God. Now, to help us understand this, I want to start by saying the human life is assessed in 3 ways or in 3 stages. Every life is assessed in 3 stages. And the stages are while we are alive, our life is assessed while we are alive, the moment we die, and after we are gone. Every single life is assessed while we are alive, the moment we die, and after we are gone. And I will try to explain this to us. While we are alive, our life is, everything in our life is magnified. Every single thing is magnified. To when we were born, our birthdays, the family we were born to, what we wear, what we eat, the schools we go to, whether they are Ivy League schools or public schools, the friends we make, the people we marry, how they look, the kids we have, how many kids we have, what school they go to, how we retire, what we have as our pension. Everything is magnified while we are alive. While man is alive, everything seems important. Every single thing is magnified. Everything seems worth fussing about, worth celebrating, or worth being depressed about. The job you work, what your salary is, where your office is, whether you have a corner office or whether you're in the middle of an office space. You understand? All those small things seems magnified. Nothing seems small, so we fuss over little things. Where we park, our parking space, those kind of things are magnified. I spent some time watching shows like Judge Judy, and it's so amazing the kind of cases that are brought sometimes over what you see as ridiculous things that people magnify. But that is life. While we are alive, everything is magnified. And to put this to help us understand this assessment of life, I'm going to give an example of a life of someone that is now deceased and a life that we might be able to relate to. So let's look at the Nigerian life of somebody like MKO Abiola. Now, I'm using MKO Abiola because we're talking about wealth right now. So I want us to be able to drive home the message. Now, while he was alive, he was a prominent player in the political scene, in the economic scene in Nigeria. Everybody knew him then. And I was quite a young man when MKO died. I was quite young. And but then he was the man. I don't think people were talking as much about Dangote then growing up. A lot of people were talking about MKO then because he was very wealthy. Now, MKO was a man that started his career in Barclays Bank. Now, Barclays Bank is still in existence today. It still exists. It's still out there. Very strong bank in the UK. He started his career there. From there, he started working in Pfizer, a pharmaceutical. Now, most of us know Pfizer is right up there in terms of pharmaceutical companies. So he worked there for a while. And after which he started working in a place called ITT. And he was the top man there in Nigeria. Here in Nigeria, he was top man in ITT. So he always worked for foreign companies. And so he got paid a lot. And while he was in ITT, he was able to broker some deals with the federal government, which earned him a lot of money. So he was actually a very well-read, well-traveled, successful man, very influential. Everybody knew him. And, because of that, while he was alive, everything about him was magnified to the kind of cars he drove, the kind of money he had, his children, his wife, everybody, they knew a lot of things about him. So everything about him was magnified, just like it is with our own lives right now. While you're alive, everything seems important, so everything is magnified. So this takes us to the second stage of assessing a person's life, and this is the moment we die. The moment we die, all that we magnified in our life will now be analyzed. So we go to a place of analyzing a person's life. It happens every single time. When a person dies, the next thing that happens is analysis of everything they magnified in their life. And this is what we normally call grief. Grief is an analysis of a person's life, a person that has been deceased. The people in their life begin to analyze their life and their lives. So they kind of start thinking, oh, he was only 40 years old. So they analyze your age, which you magnified so much by celebrating your birthday every single year. So they're like, oh, just 40, too young. He was 20, she was 70. You understand? And they're going to analyze, oh, he was too young. Oh, he was old enough. Oh, he was just a baby, just started life. You understand? So they analyze your age. They analyzed your achievements. They're like, oh, he just built his house. He just finished building his house. He has never moved into the house. So they analyze that house that you magnified so much. They analyze your kids that you left behind. Oh, see all these beautiful kids that you left behind or that she left behind. Young kids, small children. You understand? So they analyze that. Why did she have to leave behind those kids? They analyze your work. They say he just started working in this place that was paying him a lot of salary, or he spent his whole life looking for a job. He never got the good job. You understand? So they analyze either your employment or how you magnified your unemployment. So people analyze everything. And the people that are not so close to you will analyze for just a few moments, a few seconds, a few minutes, an hour maybe, but never up to a day. So they get the information that you are deceased and they're like, that's so sad. You were so young. You understand? And they move on to the next thing in their mind. They don't grieve for that long. Their grieving is never past a few minutes because they never really knew you. Then it goes to those people that you might call acquaintances, who you might not be particularly close with, but you just had some interaction with them, maybe on a day-to-day level, on a weekly level, and that people they might grieve or analyze your life for much longer, maybe a week, some days, some months. The way the world is right now, people grieve for shorter because human relationships have become weaker. So, but I mean, earlier on, acquaintances would grieve for months, you understand, and at worst weeks. But now acquaintances get by so fast. But those people that you work with will analyze. Oh, that was her chair, and that was the mug she drank coffee with every single morning. She was so serious about her coffee. You understand? And that was her parking space. And they look at that parking space and they're like, man, if she was alive, she wouldn't have allowed you park in her space because you magnified that parking space so much. And now people analyze and say, look at the parking space now. Anybody can park there. You understand? And people analyze everything around you. But the people that stay in this analytical mode the most are people that are close to you, like family and friends. They analyze for longer, for years, 2 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, 10 years, some 20 years. Parents can stay in analytical mode when they lose a child for very, very long. Spouses children can too, if they lose their parents or their siblings or stuff like that. But then everybody now comes to the third phase of assessment. Everybody does, no matter how close they are. And this is the third phase after you are gone. After you are gone. And that means everybody comes to the acceptance that you are gone. They accept that you are gone. When they accept that you're gone, what they now look at is a summary. They summarize your life. So when you look at MKO, when he died, the moment he died, people started analyzing. Oh, look at all the houses he left, all the companies he left, look at all his children and stuff like that. Look at his unfulfilled dreams. People look at those things and started analyzing, what's the use of this life? When he had all these things, all these cars, all these people kind of question, what's the use of life if this man acquired all these things and just left them behind? And when they go past that analysis, they come to this place where they accept that you are gone, and then they summarize your life. They summarize your life into a statement. Never more than a few lines. So, and this summary might be saying he's a good man, he was a greedy person, she was impatient, he was generous, she was prayerful. You understand? Those one statement, that's what life is really about, that summary. And everybody comes to that place, the summary of your life. So you see all these things I said about MKO, I'm talking about his life, MKO Abiola. How many of you knew that he worked in ITT or worked in Pfizer? How many of you know the number of cars he had at the time he died? How many of you can say you knew how much he had in his bank account? It might take a historian to find out all these things. You might need to do some deep research to find out those things. But those things get cut out and edited when it comes to that phase of after he's gone. In the summary, we don't remember all those things. If I asked anybody what was MKO's height, how many of you would know? Very few people would know MKO's height. But it's incredible how we fuss about those things while we are alive. We magnify how tall we are. Oh, I feel so insecure because I'm so short. I'm 5'3". Oh, I feel so strong and powerful and so attractive because I'm over 6 foot. But those things don't matter after you're gone. Nobody remembers how tall MK was. We are so fussed so much about our complexion, how flawless our skin is. I remember when I was, much younger, I used to fuss over how my skin was. When I had one small pimple, I magnified it so much. Because everything while you're alive is magnified. But those things don't really matter. Nobody knows whether MK had clear skin or had blemished skin. In the end, it's the summary that we all get to remember. And that's what the Bible is telling us here in verse 20 of Luke 12. It says, "You fool, you will die this very night. Then who will get everything you worked for?" In the end, the summary is important. The summary is, who did you work for? Who gets everything you worked for? Who did you pass things on to? Who gets it? So the problem with this rich man in this parable was not the fact that he was rich, but the fact that he was rich only towards himself and not towards others. When he died, nobody was going to get all he worked for. And that's how it is with most of us. The problem is not possession. The problem is when we make possession central to us. It is us. It is for us. The problem is not wealth. It's when wealth doesn't flow out from us to other people. And wealth can be anything. Can be money, can be time, can be strength, can be intellect. But we don't share it. We use it only to gain stuff for ourselves. And then nobody gets all we work for after we are gone. And the summary of a man's life is what people can say they got after you are gone. That's what they summarize it as. That's what makes them say you are a good person or a bad person or a selfish person or somebody with whom they could share things with. It's the summary of a man's life that matters at the end of a day. At the end of the day, that's what matters. That's how you measure a man's life. If I mention people in history like Gandhi or Mandela or Florence Nightingale or Martin Luther King, how many of you can remember what schools they went to? What school did Gandhi go to? How much did he earn as a salary? How much was in bank account when he died? How many children did he have? How pretty was his wife? How flawless was Florence Nightingale's skin? Did Martin Luther King have a pot belly or did they have a six-pack? You see, all those things that we acquire while we are alive and magnify, those things do not last in the summary of our lives. They don't really last. They don't last when we summarize our lives. And the summary of our lives is, what did we do that was for the good of others? And that's what this rich man missed out. And that's why he was called a fool. He did only things for the good of him. And if you look through the Bible at, if you go further to Luke 16, Jesus tells another parable about another rich man. It says rich man and the beggar. And it said there was a certain rich man, Luke 16:19, it says there was a certain rich man who was splendidly clothed in purple and fine linen, and who lived each day in luxury. So it gives us some context about this rich man. It says, at his gate lay a poor man named Lazarus. Now this is interesting. The fact that both rich people that were mentioned in both stories were never given names. And that makes us know that riches is not enough to urge our names in history. So he says, this rich man had a poor man named Lazarus at his gate. So even though Lazarus was poor, he did something that put his name in history. So who was covered in sores? As Lazarus lay there longing for scraps from the rich man's table, the dogs would come and lick his open sores. So I always wondered why the Bible mentioned the dogs that came to lick Lazarus' sores. But then I got to find out that what the Bible is trying to say was the dogs had more compassion for humans than humans had for humans. Because when dogs lick sores, they lick to give some relief to the person that has the wound. So they were trying to relieve him of his pain. And this was the pain that even the fellow human, this rich man who had Lazarus at his gate, never acknowledged. And you see, they both died. But you see, what was written against the rich man was not the fact that he had wealth, but that he chose to use his wealth for himself alone, to dress in splendid purple and fine linen, and to live in luxury when he had a Lazarus at his gate. So to answer Brian's question, by what is your life measured? Your life is measured by those who you have at your gate, looking to get at least some scrap from you. Your life is measured by how much scrap, in quote, you are able to give to those at your gate. Now, some people can only give scrap, but some other people are able to give more than scrap. And that's why I remember people like Gandhi, Martin Luther King, Mandela, Florence Nightingale, Mother Teresa. You remember these people because they met the people at their gates who were looking up to them. My question to you is, do you even know the people at your gate, or are you so concerned about your purple linen that nobody would remember when they summarize your life? That's the most important thing. The people at your gate. That's how a man's life is measured. Each person should be aware of the people at their gate and the sores on their bodies, and to be able to at least drop some crumbs. That's the least. The minimum requirement is not the optimal, but the minimum. You must know the people at your gate. Very important, because that's how your life will be measured. In the end, that's what they will say. Whether you are a good person, a kind person, nobody's going to talk about how curvy your body was. Nobody knows how curvy Mother Teresa's body was, or how curvy Florence Nightingale's body was. But they gave to people at their gate. Gandhi gave to the people at his gate, the poor people and oppressed people in India. Mandela gave to the oppressed people in South Africa. Those are the people at his gate. Martin Luther King gave to the oppressed black people in the US. Those were the people at his gate. Florence Nightingale gave to the injured soldiers. Those were the people at her gate. Your life is measured by how you meet the needs of those at your gate. And I hope that answered your question, Brian. One of the reasons why I'm doing this podcast and why I answer people's questions and try to give them a sense of clarity, because I realize those are people at my gate. It's not about making money. I don't get paid to do this thing, but I realize that at the end of my life, the summary of my life is not going to be the clothes I have, or the cars I bought, or even the children I have. It's going to be what I did with my life and how it met the needs of the people at my gate. And I hope this inspires someone to think and to be more aware that life is more than you and what you get from it and how much you possess, how much you acquire, how much you accumulate. It's about how much you give. It's about how people assess your life after you're gone.